we work with the government, with legislative drafting, because I think nobody has to say it, but everybody knows कि legislative drafting की हालत बहुत अच्छी नहीं है अभी country में.
Even if you go for a judicial service career and you become a judicial officer, then also you need to have a very good research to write the judgment. Your judgment should be
Definitely.
So to write reasoned judgments, you have to have good research to back that reasoning.
This was something that we were never taught in law school. We learned on the job. We fully learned on the job. There is an organization that's actually trying to tell how we can draft our laws and also willing to independently research topics that matter.
Hello everyone, we welcome you in another episode of DNLU podcast. I am Namrata Singh from 5th semester in Dharmashastra National Law University, Jabalpur. Today we have some of very esteemed group of individuals who will definitely bring a wealth of knowledge in this discussion. Starting with Miss Mayuri Gupta ma'am and Miss Ritwika Sharma ma'am. Mayuri ma'am is a Milon Banerji Research Fellow at Charkha, Vidhi Center for Constitutional Law. She has done her LLM from Gujarat National Law University in Administrative and Constitutional Law. Her current research interest includes decentralized governance, federalism, and literal reforms. We welcome you, ma'am. Our another dignitary, Ms. Ritwika Sharma ma'am, is Senior Resident Fellow and lead at Charkha Vidhi Center for Constitutional Law, and her current research is focused on comparative federalism, electoral reforms, and local governments. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thanks a lot, Namrata.
Today's discussion will be based on career opportunities for law students at think tanks. So starting with, my very first question is to Mayuri ma'am, who has done her LLM from Gujarat National Law University and has a very well academic background. Ma'am, my question is, what is a think tank? And how do you get to know about Vidhi Center for Constitutional Law? And what made you think that think tank is actually very enticing to you?
When I first did my LLM, by then Vidhi had already established itself as a very big name in the think tank arena, and it was one of the few think tanks which was well known, especially working in the area of law. So I got to know about it during my time at I was doing my master's. So and I was always interested in research. I was interested in reading research papers and writing research papers, and I did it throughout my undergrads and my master's, while at DNLU as well. I came to know about Vidhi Center for Legal Policy's job vacancy, if you call it. I got to know it through Twitter. So one day I was scrolling through Twitter, and that's how I got to know that there's a position. And I got to know about Charkha, which is the Constitutional Law Center at Vidhi, and I saw how my thoughts and my ideas about research and constitutional law converges with Charkha's areas of focus. So Charkha was also working in the area of federalism and local governments, and I then started my PhD journey, and I was doing my coursework. So I got to know that there is an organization which is working in the area of federalism in India and is interested to work in the area of local governments. So I thought, what's better than this, that I apply for an organization which is working in this area. That's how I applied for it. And this is what enticed me to apply for Charkha and the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. My next question is to Ritwika ma'am. Ma'am, having a very great academic background and very different career opportunities, the same question is, what made you believe that Think India is the one and I shall be serving in it?
Sure. So again, I joined Vidhi actually long back when Vidhi was a very young organization. I was freshly out of college after having finished my master's. And when I was in college, and I finished college in 2013, so I very unintentionally also admitted that I have been 10 years out of college. उस time but there were only two opportunities when when I was in college. I either knew about going to a law firm or litigating. But then I heard about Vidhi, which was offering this third very novel opportunity of people who are interested in research. Vidhi was giving them a platform. And I think that's what really got me interested in Vidhi. So Vidhi, for the benefit of our viewers, I'd also tell what Vidhi does, the Vidhi Center for Legal Policy. Two kinds of work broadly. एक तो जिस तरह का काम चरखा टीम करती है constitutional, which is purely independent research. We come up with topics which we think are very compelling and are important to be discussed and researched in India. And then we research them from a very independent, non-partisan perspective. दूसरा है, we work with the government, with legislative drafting, because I think nobody has to say it, but everybody knows कि legislative drafting की हालत बहुत अच्छी नहीं है अभी country में. The drafts may not be of the best quality, and it's not a recent problem. हमेशा से ऐसा ही रहा है. So this is another problem. This is another problem that Vidhi set out to remedy. So this is what actually really enticed me towards Vidhi, that there is an organization that's actually trying to tell how we can draft our laws, and also willing to independently research topics that matter. So for instance, Mayuri spoke about decentralized governance, which largely pertains to her research, pertains to local governments, panchayats and municipalities. So I think at this point it's very important for us to ask कि अगर panchayats या municipalities empowered नहीं हैं तो क्यों नहीं? And that sort of research we think is important. Vidhi is giving us the scope and the opportunity to discuss all of these topics, research all of these topics, and then actually talk about these topics. So that's what really got me interested in Vidhi. Plus largely my background has been in research all these years. So that's why I think Vidhi was now I think in hindsight I can say Vidhi was a natural choice.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, indeed a great reply. The next question is, which actually comes in the mind of every law student. Despite in a law school, we have ample of opportunities ranging from mooting, debating, ADR, and then this trending mock trial advocacy. So what student in his initial year to final year must engage in these activities or extracurricular activities such that these things can actually help them build a career in think tank?
See, I would suggest in these 5 years, do everything possible that you can do. Attempt everything, try to do everything. सब करो. मैंने सब कुछ किया है. तब तो मॉक ट्रायल वगैरह नहीं होता था, but moot courts, paper presentations, writing for vlogs and everything. सब कुछ करो, then only you will be able to find yourself. You will be able to find your calling. कि मुझे क्या इंटरेस्ट कर रहा है, what is something that I am doing and it does not feel like a burden to me. ऐसा नहीं लग रहा है कि मैं कॉलेज आवर्स के बाद कुछ काम कर रही हूँ instead. It's something refreshing that helps me to refresh. It's like a leisure activity. So I would suggest to do everything, try everything. But if somebody wants to make a career in research and in think tanks, then you should read.
Okay.
It's very important to be well-read in case you want to write. Until and unless you have a good background and knowledge about things, you can't be writing about it. And you should know not a lot. I won't say that you should have very good knowledge about research methods and methodology, but a basic knowledge of how methodology works, how a research is to be conducted. That should be done.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, your views?
So, I'll just two thoughts broadly. I would concur with everything that Mayuri said. I don't know if anything has changed in all these years that I have been out of law school, but I think one thing that I found lacking in my legal education was good research skills, because we were told the basics and then nobody really asked us to research. We researched, or some of us researched because we wanted to, and we had a natural inclination towards it. Now, what people don't tell you is that good research skills not only help you in a think tank, but they help you everywhere. They help you in life generally. Whether you're a litigating lawyer, whether you're a transactional lawyer, whether you're a corporate lawyer, काम वो हर जगह आता ही है वो research skills. So I think even if let's say the institution is only telling you the basics of research, I would say थोड़ा बहुत अपने आप को inspire करके अपने research skills को polish करना is very essential. That will help you with a think tank career. That will help you with a career just generally. The only other thing, because you also asked और कौन से activities कर सकते हैं, I'll approach this from a different perspective. I'll tell you what is the general profile of the people working at Ritwika. At this point, we have people who have either been practicing lawyers, who were either corporate lawyers at one point but are now working at a think tank. We also have people who have been purely research bred. Some people like me who have been in research through and through. So हमारा profile currently बहुत ज़्यादा diverse है. So basically what I'm trying to get at is dabble in a wide range of activities in law school, because everything is going to teach you something जो आपको आपके think tank career में काम आएगा. So be diverse. Just be open to new experiences. In fact, I mean, sometimes people ask me, so why was mooting important? I think mooting was, it's not as if I'll become a wonderful arguing counsel if I moot. It may or may not be true, but it definitely helped me with some exposure, with some research skills, with drafting memorials, with drafting arguments, with drafting pleadings. So do everything. Everything is going to feed into your think tank experience.
Ma'am, because there's a notion that if you want to pursue a career in especially judicial service examination, then you just have to have a thorough knowledge of the subjects such as the common subjects which are asked in the papers. So this is a great information that we have to be diverse, and researching will not only help us in all these things, but it has a very bigger approach.
Yes, so even if you go for a judicial service career and you become a judicial officer, then also you need to have a very good research to write the judgment. Your judgment should be
Definitely.
reasoned. So to write reasoned judgments, you have to have good research to back that reasoning.
Definitely, ma'am. My next question is that although these career opportunities entice you a lot, but what are the actual challenges that a student might face after getting a career in think tank?
The big challenge that I have faced while being in research is, so research is a tedious job and research does not show you results immediately. कभी आप research करो, and this is basically become my sort of go-to dialogue for a lot of people. Sometimes the fate of research is आपने बहुत कुछ किया for let's say a period of 3 years, 4 years. Ultimately it gets reduced to one footnote in somebody else's research. ये तो, and to be perfectly honest, now I have made peace with it. कि किसी और ने cite किया इसका मतलब it's good enough. Although in the larger scheme of things, when you sleep at night, you feel अरे यार एक footnote है क्या बस. But that's one thing. Actually, it's a 2-point project. It's a two-prong point that I'm trying to make. One is research requires patience. आपको समय बिताना पड़ेगा if you're researching. So for instance, anti-defection, somebody who yesterday only asked us, we've been working on anti-defection since the last 8 months.
Okay.
So somebody actually, and 8 months is not long. 8 months कुछ बहुत ज़्यादा लंबा टाइम नहीं है, but किसी को क्या कर रहे हो यार आपके लिए बस. That's what someone, actually it's longer than 8 months at this one. So somebody ended up asking us, 8 महीने से आप कर क्या रहे हो? It's just why 10th schedule of the constitution. What are you doing for this job? But as researchers, we know that I could actually spend another 5 years and it would still be relevant. So research requires patience. Sometimes at think tanks, आपको लगता है कि what are you doing this for? What is the ultimate result? And that's one problem with a lot of doctrinal research, that one, it requires patience. It requires you to sit and read. The other is convincing people कि मैं जो कर रही हूँ वो important है. वो बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है. Again, this is a joke that, this is a private joke amongst all Vidhi employees. We are never able to tell our families कि हम करते क्या. It's very difficult. It's actually very difficult. So sometimes, अच्छा तो Vidhi करता क्या exactly? So that's when we tell them we work with the government. We help them draft laws. So basically it's a sarkari job. It is not. So it becomes very difficult to do that. So one is patience. One is telling people that research is important, convincing people. The third is impact creation takes time, and that ties back to the point on patience. आपको समय लगेगा, बट उसके लिए आपको कन्विक्शन चाहिए कि जो हम कर रहे हैं वो इम्पोर्टेंट है. प्लस इफ यू कम टू थिंक अबाउट इट, इफ यू थिंक अबाउट द स्कॉलर्स दैट आई रीड अ लॉट, फॉर इंस्टेंस आई एम श्योर जो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन लॉ है उसके ऊपर तरुण खेतान को सबने पढ़ा ही होगा कभी ना कभी. तरुण खेतान has always spent a lot of time doing his own research, coming up with those theory of discrimination. He also spent time on it. So I think that kind of conviction everybody requires. I understand that comes with a lot of खुद को बहुत drive करना पड़ता है, but that's one big challenge that one can face at a think tank. Also because think tank, we are a policy organization. So ultimately it's also very difficult to sometimes convince people that how can I be spending 8 months or a year working on something? because we tend to operate on very quick deadlines. So striking that balance between doing things fast and also maintaining quality, that is sometimes a very big challenge. Am I having missed out something? I think largely this is not a big challenge. I'm trying to be very muted about it, but I may have said too much. Think about it and everything.
You can. Indeed, ma'am. My next question, in your views and thoughts, how do you foresee in the coming years the relationship between legal education and think tank?
I'll just quickly say two things. And this is because I'm glad you asked that question, because at Vidhi हम लोग भी बहुत सोचते रहते हैं कि हमने जो पढ़ा था versus जो हम अभी कर रहे हैं उसमें कुछ synergy था कि नहीं था. So I think legal education currently is, and I'm speaking from a place of not having dabbled in academia for a very long time. But some things I know I'm sure haven't changed. For instance, अब हम लोग legislative drafting में इतना partake करते. This was something that we were never taught in law school. We learned on the job. We fully learned on the job. Law कैसे draft करते हैं. There are actual books and treatises on legislative statutory drafting जो मैंने college में नहीं पढ़ी हैं. In fact, I did not even know that they existed. So I think two things I think legal education should gear itself towards so that they can create a good employment for think tanks is. One is, I think it's high time we come up with a course on legislative drafting.
True. Very true.
Definitely do that. And that legislative drafting course should speak to the course on statutory interpretation. So I think interpretation of statutes, IOS is a course here.
Yes. Yes.
So I was once reading a course for my LLM which basically spoke about interpretation of statutes and its interplay with legislative drafting. And to be perfectly honest, ये चीज़ बड़ी normal है. मतलब आप दोनों चीज़ साथ में नहीं पढ़ोगे तो कैसे करोगे? But we've never discussed this. So I think that's something we should definitely think about. It's high time. It's high time we think that way. The other thing actually I already said in the previous question also, we really need to have better research courses. We really need to empower our students with how to research well. How to research well and also how to write better. I think some of these things are very instinctive. Some people are more geared towards researching and writing. But I think as a law school, it's the law school's job to teach everyone equally well. Then later on, people can find out their own calling. I think, yeah, that's broadly.
No, and I also agree with her, because when I was doing my undergrad, I remember how I learned research was completely a hit and try thing. So because I was interested into it, I started writing it. I failed quite a few times. I got hold of some seniors who were writing and run around them, asking them to teach me this and that. And that's how I learned it. I don't know how it's happening now in law schools, whether they are teaching you research methodology and writing skills or not. But I believe that this should be research methodology and writing should be introduced quite early in a law school, basically in your second, third years, so that you start working towards that and you start learning how to research and write. Also, I would like to mention that, see, we can come up with a research paper after doing a 8-month long, spending 8 months on it, because we have that time and we are doing that only. Your assistant professors or your faculties, they cannot do that. So they cannot teach you anti-defection law for 2 months because they have a course schedule, because I have taught for some time. So I know that they have, you get only 3 months to learn a paper. You get 3 months to learn one subject. How much can your teacher teach you in 3 months? So they have to skip this anti-defection 10 schedule and they have to cover this only in 1 class. 2 class maximum, not more than that. They cannot do it. We have this liberty to read about it for 8 months and write about it in 30 pages, 40 pages. Your faculties cannot do it. So it's not like that what we are learning in law schools is not important and what we are doing is only the thing that should be done. The law school is creating a base. What is being taught is for you to understand. See, what you learned in your class 9, political science is not relevant to you today. But it's not like that you have learned nothing. You understood the basic of governance, the basics of democracy. Then only you are learning the constitution now. So this is also important so that you can do what we are doing now.
Definitely, ma'am. Ma'am, because like speaking about my own university, we have dedicated research centers, and this Center for Constitutional Law also focuses on research skills, and we have dedicated student law journal also, which actually makes student to review the contents from different university. And since this is a growing university, we are making students take part in various competitions and go through like we have also done various moots, and our flagship event is Justice JP Singh Memorial National Moot Court Competition, and hence we are also trying to make our students delve into researching and things and pursue
Actually, that's very reassuring for us.
Yes, and talking about my own personal experience, I'm in third year right now, and initially I tried writing articles because this was quite intimidating for me, seeing my own batchmates getting their articles being published at Leaflet or The Guardian, Telegraph and stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm feeling a bit FOMO यार कि I should also start writing कि मेरा भी article publish होना चाहिए. तो मैंने लिखा, although I got 3 rejections from Live Law, bar and bench, but indeed it was like, okay, now I have to actually delve into this a bit more and start researching. And I'm also working on this article recently, which is based on Uniform Civil Code, hoping that it gets published soon.
But I'll tell you something honestly, this FOMO feeling doesn't go away anytime.
Anytime.
I would also feel a lot of FOMO when somebody else in office is publishing. Like, they published one. What am I doing?
Exactly.
But basically, I mean, I'm sure you're doing this already. The whole point is to not stop.
True.
And just keep doing it.
Doing it, right.
Till something works out. And things definitely work out.
Because
I think number of portals publishing research pieces have also increased now. And they're of good quality. So, yeah, something is definitely going to work out.
Definitely. My next question is, what are your expectations from fellow members who actually come to think tanks? Like, what qualities do they have?
From, as in the people who we hire?
Yes, exactly.
What qualities?
Yes.
I think Vidhi, so one is, of course, the sort of academic qualities we expect in people, which is to, as I said, good research skills, and even if not the best research skills, they are open to honing and polishing their research skills. Because हम भी अभी तक research सीख ही रहे हैं, तो वो तो it's a lifelong process. That's one thing. The one thing that we actually focus on a lot is good analytical skills, because as I said, we want our research to translate into some kind of impact. So we also want कि जो हम लोग research करें, it talks to what the government either wants to do or what we think are issues that the government should focus on. And not just government, but actually even courts. So thoda analytical bent of mind to actually sort of make sure what you think is going to be palatable to policy makers in the country. थोड़ा उस टाइप का बेंट ऑफ माइंड हम डेफिनेटली देखते हैं, बिकॉज हम ये भी नहीं चाहते कि कोई सिर्फ वैक्यूम में रिसर्च करता है कि वो रिसर्च किसी चीज़ के लिए काम भी लाए. दैट्स वन थिंग. Besides that, actually Vidhi also requires a certain other kind of skill, because Mayuri will attest to it. हम सारे लोग जो हैं Vidhi में, we are lawyers, we are researchers, but we also do a lot of admin stuff. So इतने साल हो गए हैं, उसके बाद भी internship applications हम खुद ही handle करते हैं. We do a lot of administrative stuff simply because I feel वो थोड़ा sense of belongingness create करता है organization की तरफ. तो बहुत सारे non-legal काम भी हम लोग करते हैं. I know some people might think this is not what my job description should be, but at Vidhi, our founders as well as all of us have been of the opinion that people should be open to doing these things. ये थोड़ा grounded रहने में बहुत मदद करता है. So that sort of open-mindedness we also expect at Vidhi. Actually, I joined Vidhi long back, so now I don't even know what we are expecting. What about to get in?
No, there definitely should be a team spirit. Somebody who can be a team worker, who can work with the team and also can do some individual work.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's true. That's
so
nice.
You should be able to do the individual thing, but can also be able to work with the team.
Correct.
As a team. So if somebody falls, you're ready to pull that person up.
True.
Also, I liked it when you said that you faced quite a few rejections. It's very important to be able to accept your rejections.
Yeah, that's right.
So we also do certain things. We do data. We have started doing data now.
So we fail more often than we would like to admit. So Kali, in fact, when we were cleaning our data for tomorrow's workshop, Mayuri pointed out 3 errors. और फिर हमें लेकिन but again हम लोग बहुत ज़्यादा empirical काम करते नहीं, so अभी हम सीख रहे हैं हम लोग.
So we are also learning it. So that's how you learn. And these qualities should be there, that you should be able to accept your mistakes, accept where you have done something wrong, and quickly be able to work it around.
True. Actually, that's one very good thing you pointed out, because Vidhi, if you've done something, it's your product. It goes out in your name, it doesn't go out in your senior team member's name, which also means that when you mess up, you will be held accountable, which I think is a very fair expectation.
Individually.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe not individually in front of the world, but in office, yes. Internally, we definitely, because I think it's also a process where everybody wants to learn from their mistakes. So that sort of correctly credit giving plus accountability goes hand in hand.
Okay, great. The next question, which I think that this might pop up in minds of every student watching this. What is the difference between the research that you do in Vidhi and the traditional legal practice?
By traditional legal practice, you mean
Litigation.
Litigation. Quite a few differences, but quite a few similarities also. And I also come from a place where we had the opportunity, me and some other teammates, to assist some senior advocates in some ongoing constitutional law litigation. So हमारे साथ क्या होता है, when we research, we sometimes put in a lot of detail in our research, but जो legal pleadings होती हैं, जो written submissions होते हैं, that they require brevity. They require things to be summed up very, very quickly. And again, I think this is a gap that we are trying to bridge, because I genuinely feel constitutional litigation where brevity rakho अच्छी बात है, but one should also be comprehensive in their research. So I think very typically a lot of our research sometimes may or may not be geared towards what courts are currently dealing with. But yes, we are trying to bring that synergy जहाँ हमारी research can actually be used by courts, by judges as well as individual lawyers. So in fact, recently we finished a project on the right against discrimination. The third member in our team, he is recently finished his research on the right against discrimination. And we are talking to people जो actually discrimination law वाले इतने सारे cases, discrimination law वाले नहीं, but discrimination issues वाले जो cases हैं, we are really hoping people can use that research somewhere. So that ऐसा ना हो कि हमारी research, जैसा कि मैंने अभी बोला, it's operating in a vacuum and it's of no use to anyone. So that's what's happening. One big difference that I see in the way research happens in traditional legal practice, again, litigation is very on the go. आपके पास 8 महीना नहीं होता है, the hearing is coming up tomorrow, you're basically up the whole night. ये करने के लिए, it's not so much, it's a difference of expectation. हमारे पास थोड़ा टाइम ज़्यादा रहता है और हम वही रिसर्च करते हैं, किसी को एक रात में वो रिसर्च करके देनी है. आई एम श्योर उससे क्वालिटी सफ़र करती है, बट देन आई थिंक इट्स अ लिटिगेशन इशू. You can't do much. That's how litigation happens. I don't know if this is how litigation happens everywhere, but this is definitely how litigation happens in India, in the Supreme Court as well as the High Courts. But yeah, as I said, we are trying to create this synergy between litigation and our research.
Okay.
Also, another difference that I feel, Ritwika, correct me if I'm wrong. In litigation, basically, you represent one party. We don't represent anyone.
We are not.
So we are non-partisan that way. We don't think it from one perspective, but we are open to all perspectives. We read everything. We just then come to a conclusion whether this should be done or that should be done. And that's how we present our research. At times, our research can have open-ended solutions where the reader can come up with his own solution while reading the research. So we are non-partisan in that way.
Yeah, indeed.
We are not representing anyone.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. The very next question is like, what career opportunities a student has in think tank?
I think this is a very good time for students to be applying to think tanks, because frankly there are many of them at this point. Again, maybe 7 or 8 years ago itna nahi malum tha think tanks ke bare mein. But quite a few think tanks currently have come up. I'm not sure if there are enough and more legal policy think tanks, because Vidhi, I think that way is one of those organizations that has done legal policy squarely. I know there are many others that do law plus social science. Yeah. But again, I also feel this is also the time when law students are figuring out that law, again, I'm using this word many times, but again, law is not operating in a vacuum. It has to keep talking to the social sciences as well. So I think this is a wonderful time for people to dabble in think tanks. It's also, again, correct me if I'm mistaken, I have not been in a law school setting in a long time, but I also feel it's also a great time to be at research centers in law schools. Because there are, again, many of them. Maybe if I hadn't been at Vidhi, I would have been at some research center in a law school, because people may have many objections with the government, but in my limited experience of working with the government थोड़ा receptive हो गई है अगर आप उनको अच्छे से research करके कुछ दो. वो आपकी research use करें या ना करें, but research करवाएंगे ज़रूर, and it's not as if your research is just not being used anyway. So I think that way it's a great time to think about a career in a think tank, much better than what things were, let's say 7 to 8 years ago. I think it's a good time. It's a very good time.
Definitely. This indeed will serve like a good, insightful video for all the students who are actually seeking their career in think tanks. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out your precious time and
Our pleasure entirely.
fruitful discussion. Thank you so much.